Welcome back, listeners. This is Good Morning Hospitality, and today we are breaking one of the biggest stories in the industry. Joining myself, Michael, and Brandy, Steve Schwab, the founder and CEO of Casago, joins us to discuss the $128 million acquisition of Vacasa, a publicly traded property management company that is no longer publicly traded and is under the Casago brand and is pivoting to a franchise model. This isn't just another acquisition. This is a bold move to reimagine how vacation rental management companies operate, scale, and serve homeowners and guests. So, without further ado, let's welcome Steve Schwab to the show.
Welcome to Good Morning Hospitality, your one-stop shop for the latest news, noteworthy trends, and thought-provoking discussions across the industry. From hotels and short-term rentals to all things travel and hospitality, you'll find each episode equips you with the information that you need to start your week. Join us on Good Morning Hospitality every Monday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Good morning. Welcome back. Special episode. Big day. How we feeling?
Fantastic. I'm back in Miami, so I'm even more excited.
Congratulations, Randy.
We are here today for one sole reason. Steve, is it done?
It's done.
Signed, sealed, and delivered. Congrats.
Yep. As of midnight last night.
As of midnight. Wow.
Yep.
All right. You look great for being up that late.
Yeah, well. So
Nice.
far, so good. A few days of no sleep does the body good.
Yeah, of course. I'm sure you've been getting full nights of sleep for the past 6 months, all of that. So before we jump in, if you don't mind giving a quick overview on Casago, how it's different than your typical short-term rental manager, and then we can start jumping into this Vacasa acquisition and how it all came about.
Yeah. So, Casago was started, 25 years ago. I was a 28-year-old kid going to the beaches of Mexico. I was living down there for a little bit, and I just got out of the military and college, and ran into a gentleman who needed some help, and helped him out a little bit for free. Didn't really expect anything, and that act of kindness ended up leading me to me owning the business, and off we went. Early on, there was a competitor in town who wasn't treating the owners very well. And we were just taking, owner after owner. And these guys told one of the owners that was switching over, like, the only reason you go over there is because Steve's kissing your butt. And she had relayed that to me. I'm like, first, like, no, I'm not. I'm like, well, wait. If what you're saying is that I'm actually going to treat owners well and make the decisions based on their best interests when they're away, I guess you can call it what you want, but I call it, being centered on the owner. And over time, that became owner-centric, and through that, I started talking to our team about that. And when that same company left town in the middle of the night with everybody's money and payroll and everything else, we got the call and took over, all this inventory, and had to help the homeowners out and help the teammates out their teammates out that hadn't been paid. And it was close to Christmas, and all that had gone on in short order, and the company was actually getting away from me. And I remember going down to the beach and sitting for a little bit and wondering, if I was necessarily qualified to run something like this. I never ran an organization of that size. And we started talking about, the principles that needed to be held up. And so just like Ranger Battalion, where we had this Ranger Creed that we talked about every single day, and we had this like common language. You'd hear us all speaking the same language and using the same words, having the same ideas when we were making decisions. I wrote down a credo, and that became the way that we think about, make decisions. And we still to this day take that credo and make our decisions based off of it. We talk about it every single day. We have a stand-up in which we're having conversations about one of the lines of the credo and how we interpret it and what it means. That really started changing things. I didn't understand at the time that, really when you take principles and you give them to teammates and let them make decisions, they understand what a good decision is and what a bad decision is. And when you understand that and you have a group of people who have a social norm to make these decisions based on these principles, that social norm becomes a culture. And when you have a culture of people making great decisions, you start to build trust with your team, and on comes autonomy and all of the things that go along with it. And at some point, I decided that these people who are autonomous, making great decisions, deserved a chance of their own to have their own companies. So we started to take the best of our people and move them to other cities and give them equity in the new cities. And that's how we started to expand. And that became eventually what was a franchise model. And one day on stage at the BRMA Executive, we were watching Vacasa talk about how they're going to take over the world, and these local
What year
mom
was
and pops
that?
never had a chance. Never had a chance. That was 4 years ago. You know, they maybe it was 5 years ago, but they came off stage and I two of the guys I was sitting with said, "Oh man, maybe we should just sell." And I said, I've got this idea. I've actually got those enterprise tools. What if I could figure out how to give you those enterprise tools, in a way that made it where you couldn't use those, you couldn't have those tools at the same price, and you come under Casago and you can be the local heroes, and I can help you with, training and process and pricing and tools. And they both said, that sounds great. And those were my first franchises in the United States. And from that, we just started growing. And what I found, what really makes us different is we've got these people who really love vacation rentals and love the business. And I've said to many of them when they're thinking about signing up as a franchise partner, I said, if you're not really a vacation rental nerd, if you can't sit down with me and just nerd out on this for a little bit, if you can't love what you're doing and love on these homeowners, then you don't belong here. You may be a good property manager, but if you don't really love this, we're not a good fit for you, because we want to be able to sit down and have these fantastic conversations about how we are owner centric and how we make these decisions based on these owners' best behalf, and how do we create this genuine hospitality that creates 5-star stays. And some people didn't sign up because of that, and that's okay, because a culture isn't just there for the fluff, it's there to be an immune system. And so we've got some really lovely, competent, brilliant property managers who love what they're doing, and the results show for themselves. The results speak for themselves. We've got 95% of them are a Airbnb superhost or premier partner or both. And when we give them the tools and processes they need, and we have principles that and a culture that we all live by, in a community that creates those social norms, it just blossoms. And so that's really what makes Casago different.
I love it. It's so cool. And I'm not surprised that you guys got that response in the culture side when you created the credo, the values, right? Like, you were in the Army, Steve. I was in the Army. You joined the Army. You have the soldier's creed. You have the Army values. You have all these things that get instilled in you, and you sign up for that, right? Like, you enlist knowing this is what I'm living up to. This is the standard I'm going to put myself at. So I'm not surprised when you created that for Casago, that was the response, because as you got to see it in real time through your Army career. So I think it's awesome. I think it's beautiful. I love the evolution of what you have built. And to be here today is so exciting, because for all the listeners, and obviously you, Steve, that we have been covering the obvious stories of Vacasa throughout the years, right? When they went from IPO to a couple bad earning calls to a bunch of questions and layoffs and other things that kind of happened in the last couple of years. And, the question that a couple of listeners and friends of the show have submitted, and one that we had lined up for you around this was, with Vacasa being I think it was 25,000 homes or so, give or take, under management, to you guys being around 5,000-ish at the time, what moment happened in your life, in the career, in the last year or two, that you were like, you know what, this is a challenge that I want to taking on the problem child of the industry, in terms of going from private to SPAC to not doing so hot on the market. There's obviously a lot of eyeballs and attention and magnifying glasses on you guys throughout this whole process. So I'd just love to know the kind of beginning moment where you decided to take on this challenge and get to where we are today.
Yeah, I'd talked about it before, around a table, because everybody loves to have these dreams and talk a lot. And I was one of the other, what we should do is this, and we should go figure out how to get Vacasa and turn it into a franchise model. That's the way to fix that thing. And
I think we even said that on the show, actually, like 2 years ago. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure those exact words were stated.
I had another Army Ranger show up at our booth at VRMA, and he said, I think it was in Orlando, but he's like, "Hey, heard there's another Army Ranger on here, so we get to talk in. Which Ranger battalion were you in? Which were you in?" Because I have this idea about like taking on Vacasa somehow and turning it into a franchise model. Oh, that's weird that you'd say that. Maybe he was listening to your show. I don't know, but that was Joseph Riley, and 2024 had a lot of turmoil in it for me, and was going through a lot of change, and I needed that to be able to reset myself. It was a complete reset, and I decided to take the risk, and I called and said, "Hey, how do we get this started?" And it was John Banzak I called, and he said, "Look, I can't be involved in this, but I'll connect you to the right people." And he connected me to him and stepped out of it. And I initially tried to do it on my own. I was calling, investors, and I was trying to get the numbers together, and I was like, I'm a property manager. I'm not a deal guy. And so I was like, I better bring in some reinforcements here. So I called up Joseph Riley, and so it began. And he is brilliant and smart and can work insane hours. And his Luke, who was a CFO and who came in, and it just started one piece at a time. And I think we were at single digit probability. Luke gave it a 2% chance. And
Wow.
I thought he was being optimistic, actually.
So you're telling me there's a chance.
Yes, exactly. And I remember the first time we got on the phone with the other side's bankers, they wouldn't even they came on like 20 minutes late, and they wouldn't look at the camera. And they're just like, yeah, you're a kid. Like, we're doing us a favor to even be on the phone with you. And we were able to bring on Jeffries from our side as our bankers, and off we went. And we started getting their attention, and we talked to probably 300 people, and over 45 pitches. And I remember one day, like, we thought we had things lined up, and we got a no in the morning. Like, okay, we've got two more. We got a no in the afternoon, and we were in the airport, and we both took separate airplanes. He went home to Tennessee. I went to Phoenix, and by the time I got home, there was a third no. And we thought, the deal's dead. And I remember just like laying in bed going, well, that was at least interesting. And
Gotti taught me early in my career that every good deal falls apart at least 3 times before it gets done. So
this must be 5 or 6 deals in a row, then, because it was just unbelievable. It was a roller coaster.
3 times in one day.
Yeah, that was 3 times in a day that it came apart. And so, him and I kept talking, and pretty soon, Joe calls. He's like, I think maybe if it's not dead, I think we got a heartbeat. Let's take another shot at this. I got a lead, and we started at it again. And then it was more disappointment and more, but it was tenaciousness. And Joe and I would tell the story, like, have you heard the story about the 2 Army Rangers that lost? Like, no. It's like, neither have we. And so off we went. And yeah,
Let's go.
that was our war cry, and off continuously on. And I mean, the truth is, like, I'm focusing just on the two of us. That insane amount of work by Luke, and and then um Carlos came in, and we've got and all these people are coming in trying to figure this out, and the analysts that were trying to figure out how to put this together, and it just sheer amount of work was a lot. But I'm really grateful for everybody. And then finally, we had investors who saw the vision finally, and it took, and here we are. So really grateful to those investors who have believed in us, and the investors that decided to roll, and take a chance on us. And so there's a lot of stewardship that is going to be required, and thoughtfulness. There's going to be hard decisions, and I'm sure there's going to be some mistakes along the way. It's not going to be, not all of it's going to be pretty. Some of it's going to be really hard, but there's definitely a future there, and there's incredibly good people at Vacasa. They just need a chance to shine. They've been stuck with the ideology that they're in a tech company, and these are property managers, hand tied behind their back, and they've been moving the right direction. This is the acceleration of us stepping in and making this incredibly local, and finding stewardship at the local level, and to not just the homeowners and guests, but also there has to be stewardship of the people who run these homes for these homeowners. Really good people, and they need the opportunity to show who they are too. And as we look for partners, we need to find people who will love on them as well.
I think that was one of the questions we actually had. A lot of people have been following along. This has been kind of a public saga. And that was one of the questions that someone asked us, what is happening to the team? And I think that that's a great answer. Like, you need the people that are doing all of the hard work on the ground. So it's great to hear that, as these changes happen, that those teams will still be doing the main work, which is taking care of the guests and taking care of the homes. And, because this has been so public, and we had someone on LinkedIn also ask this, what was kind of the peak or the pit of this experience, and what was your motivation to kind of keep propelling yourself forward?
Yeah. I mean, the day that we had 3 no's in a row was a day that I feel like it was forever in my mind. Because those were 3, we thought all 3 were good to go. And like it was a tough day. The motivation, I mean, the truth is, I don't think that what was going on with Vacasa and the direction it was headed was going to be good for the industry. And it wasn't going to also be good for the homeowners or for the guests. And it wasn't going to be good for the people who work there. There was an opportunity to do something really good here. And the motivation is to build something that's a legacy company, where we can enable people who really care about, what they're doing here to have, a good future. And it's exciting, and it's exciting to get to do that,
100%. And God bless the employees that have been on that ride for the past few years. It's, I couldn't imagine, it's literally hanging on for dear life. But it sounds like you're going to, take it and deploy them in their strong suits and let them shine versus whatever's been kind of crammed down over the years. I read an interview of you speaking on stage over in England, talking about how investors didn't really understand that these property managers weren't tech enabled, and they claim to be, and they're trying to get the multiples of tech enabled companies. How are you going to meld what you've built that's repeatable and scalable with what Vacasa, claims to have had on the tech forward approach? When I think one of the things we've talked about on the show a lot is we're at the stage of the industry that there's enough good tech out there that you probably don't need to go build a whole lot of your own. So how are you guys approaching that?
Well, look, Carlos Corzo, who built Streamline from the ground up, never taking a dollar, never taking private equity money or that and took it all the way to a successful exit is our CTO. He's gone in and evaluated the tech stack and to the point that we could pre-close, and now he's got the opportunity to really open the hood and dig in deep. We're going to take each module and look at it one by one. The truth is, we don't need to own our own tech in a lot of places, but if there's something that's great and something that is cost effective and puts a unique spin to us, makes us different than everybody else, and an advantage for our homeowners, for our guests, for our franchise partners, then we can keep it. But we have a 0% of emotional attachment to any line of code that's been written.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, seriously.
So that's the advantage of not writing the code yourself. You don't have the key effect to the code, right? You haven't put it together yourself, so you have no emotional attachment to it. So we're taking everything, step by step and looking at what's going to stay, what's going to go, what makes sense commercially, on the financials, what makes sense functionally. And, at the end of the day, it's our job to make sure that we are being financially responsible to the investors that have trusted us, to make sure that we aren't just building things for building's sake, right? This is not about ego or how cool we are. This is about how do we serve the people with tech. And it was never a tech play. It's not a tech play. It was never a tech play. It was a people play. And we do need to have tech to make them bionic and give them bandwidth to do the things that they can do that tech can't. But you can't just focus. It's not a tech play. Never was.
100%. Yeah, I love that. It's a people play. I'm going to use that quote in the show notes for all the listeners. But Steve, I am curious just in terms of the assets, right? So like this is day one. You are at the start line. The race has begun after the last year of preparing for this marathon that you have to run now. And, talking about the transition period, I know there's obviously it's very new. You guys are starting to figure a lot of stuff out. There's markets that haven't been sold as franchises. So, and there's obviously previous assets that Vacasa had from the technology, from their IP, from X, Y, and Z, you name it. And so I'm curious on what is your guys' plan with the Vacasa brand, the assets that came with it, and then looking at the markets that are currently unsold as Casago franchises, what's the plan with the inventory itself? And also kind of a second follow-up question. You don't have to answer it if we're going to run out on time, but kind of what has been the response from homeowners? What's your team hearing from people that are on Vacasa management already? Just kind of curious to hear what is happening on the internal side of things.
Yeah, so there's 3 or 4 questions there. Let me see if I can go through one at a time. So from a brand point of view, Vacasa brand name as a website will continue on. That website drives literally hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue to the homeowners. It would be crazy to deprecate that, right? So we're thinking of Vacasa.com as an internally owned OTA. We'll continue to drive that and build that up, and we're putting together a team to come in and really leverage that. We'll still be working on Casago.com as well under brand, but that's how we're thinking about our web presence. When it comes to the brand on the ground, there was a new version of the Vacasa logo that was released today. Is Vacasa a Casago company? That is, Vacasa will remain in place on the consolidated side of the business until we sell them off as a franchise with somebody who's going to be able to come in and own that market and put a lot of attention on that market. At that point, the conversion to Casago will take place. So there's not an immediate, switch over. We're going into season where we have to make sure that we're not disrupting the business, and so providing all that and making sure that we have a surety for our guests, for our homeowners, for people who take care of them is going to be important as we go forward with this. But conversion will happen at the point of franchise ownership. Make sense? And then what was the third one?
More of what internal dialogue that's happening from current Vacasa owners are on their program, potentially I don't know. I'm just kind of curious if there's any word?
Chatter. What's
chatter.
what are the feelings from homeowners?
It seems to be, indications pre-close was that it was positive. They're looking forward to it. They want to make sure that we're not disrupting anything. What questions around brand, how that's going to work, but a positive view on it. I think that the Casago reputation, precedes us, so I think we're in a good spot there. We have to, but make no mistake, like we have to put the work in to earn the trust with our homeowners. It's not a given. That trust is earned every single day. And that it's rented and rent's due every day. So we're not resting on the laurels. We got to go in and show them who we are. And so I think that's a big part of this. And so, there's no assumption that they're going to love us. We need to go and show that we're worth loving. And so it's batter up on our side to prove to the homeowners that this is good for them.
Yeah, especially after having, years maybe where they weren't satisfied with a big brand. And if people aren't as savvy about the industry, I really like that you guys aren't going in just being like, we are naturally the better fit, and that you're going to work hard to earn your place as their manager.
Yeah. I think a lot of us feel like we have a lot on our plate. I don't know if anybody's envious of how full your plate is, Steve, at least over the next several years. But putting the next year or two behind us, what's Casago look like in 5-10 years? Where are you guys working towards?
My goal is to build the most respected brand in the industry. Will size come? Maybe. Will growth happen? It will if we focus on being a company that's respected and loved and shows respect. And how you earn respect, you give respect, and you do the right things, and you make your mistakes and you own them, and you get on with it, and you go forward with it. If we can build a business that is highly respected, loved by the people who use us, that if we are irreplaceable to the homeowners when they're away from the properties, if we love on the guests when they come and stay at those properties, and we do the right things over time, everything else will fall into place. We got to make sure our financials are correct. We got to work through the financials. We got to work through logistics. We got to do a transformation of the company. All those things will be, mechanics of building a well-respected business. And if we do that, the growth will take care of itself. Finances, need to be met. We need to be focused on, but we'll take care of themselves. But that's the hope, and that's the goal.
Take over the world. Got it.
Yeah, simple path.
That's all I said. Get me in trouble.
Schwab for president. All right.
No.
We'll avoid politics.
No politics here.
No worries. So if to maybe wrap up this interview, and it's been super helpful, hopefully provide a lot of clarity to the market on the plans and the direction you're going to take it. What's one thing that you want the industry to know about this merger, and any closing thoughts as well?
Yeah, I think I was going to say one thing to the industry is thank you. When this was announced, the grace they gave us and the goodwill they put into this, they understand that this is, they see this as a good thing. And I want to personally say thank you to this industry. They've given us the opportunity to get through with this, and it was noticed by the people internal, the investors, by those who, by the staff and the owners. The people saw how the industry has embraced us, and I am here to continue to work to keep that goodwill that is mine to lose. It's mine to continue to earn, and I'm really, really grateful to the industry. And so, yeah, thank you, and I'll continue to work hard to provide stewardship and thoughtfulness over how we do this. And if anybody wants a franchise, let me know.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think our industry is really looking for that brand that we feel good getting behind. And we had, obviously Vacasa and Sonder be the kind of like public faces to the outside world of the industry. And that wasn't necessarily putting our best foot forward, good, not discouraging or, speaking bad about anybody's attempts, but I think all of us in the industry are really excited about getting behind a brand that we feel good about from the beginning, and that it's taking something, this Vacasa is this kind of enormous, industry legend, and making it actually like as good as it can be. So I think everybody's very excited.
Short-term riddle nerds.
100%. Before we fully wrap up, we did want to get a couple maybe rapid fire questions from friends of the show who wrote in. We had some listeners and friends send us some questions, as we stated in the beginning of the episode. And one question I kind of want to ask from Dennis Shaw from Skift. He says, why should there be any confidence in scaling the business throughout the franchise model when Casago has been at it for years and still very, quote unquote, a small player in the terms of franchise? And I would love to know what your response is for that.
Well, I think that we have grown at a pace that has been sustainable. I didn't take private equity before this. This was off of the cash that I could afford. And so the investment on a personal level was very deep. And I think that what I would point to is our partners who have done well in this. And let's not think about the size of this. That's the wrong question. The real question is, what's the quality of the relationship with each and every homeowner? How is that quality happening? And that's what we should be looking at. And if we continue to focus on the relationship quality of each and every homeowner, it doesn't matter what the size is. You don't want to focus on size. You want to focus on the relationship. And that's where we've done well. And I think that's probably the best bet.
I love
How
that.
would you compare a short-term rental franchise? So I've heard you use like a Remax before. Obviously, Marriott is a hospitality franchise as well, but there's differences to both, right? The Remax is hyper local, owned locally. Marriott, you franchise the flag, and it's a hospitality, creates that brand. How do you view Casago in the world of franchises?
I mean, my hope is that we become a forward-facing, recognized brand. We have the opportunity to build something that is recognizable to not just homeowners, but to guests over time. And so the hope is that we create that and build that with them.
Beautiful. All right, last parting question for me. What's your favorite place to travel to?
No way. Get myself.
Can't pick a favorite.
All right.
I'll be.
You've been PR trained, Steve.
You've been PR trained. You know what? You know where my favorite place to travel is? The place I've never been.
Great answer.
Okay.
Great answer.
In a vacation rental, of course.
There's no other way to stay but a vacation rental. Yep.
I love it. Well, Steve, thank you so much for taking the time. I know this has been such a long journey, and I appreciate you letting us hound you to schedule this interview and to get all the back and forth done. And I just really appreciate your friendship to us as a podcast, but also to the industry, right? Like you said, thank you to the industry, and I'm going to bet my life that there's many people listening, many people watching who I would say thank you in return for making the big decision. It takes one person to do something as crazy as you did, to take the problem child of the industry and to push it forward to become a legacy company and a brand that your team, guests, and owners can be proud of, but also the industry that talks about all the trends and challenges that come along with hospitality. So just want to say thank you to making that move.
we're proud of you, and we're all rooting for you, and we're here to support you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. This is I promise that this will be the first podcast we did. The legal told me stay off podcast. So thank you very much. I'm grateful to be on the show, and I'm a big fan. You guys know I watch it often.
Yes, we're excited about that. Every time you comment in, we're like, oh, there's Steve. Good old Steve. We love it. Awesome. Well, for our listeners, if you have more questions, you can email into the show at goodmorning@hospitality.fm, and we would love to try and get those responded to you as fast as possible. But if you haven't already, go follow the journey of Casago. You can go to casago.com. You can learn more about what they're doing, learn about the franchises, and of course, the history of the company and what they're planning on extending with this acquisition. And like always, make sure you like and subscribe to the show so that way you never miss a exciting bonus episode like this. And we'll see you guys on the next one.